Hello, my brethren. I know y'all know or have read this particular verse in Luke 11 verse 5, but there's something unique and insightful about what Jesus says about asking. Let me tell you two secrets about what Jesus said in Luke 11 verse 5 to 13. Verse 5, Jesus is speaking. Then Jesus said to them, "Suppose you have a friend, and you go to him at midnight and say, 'Friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread.'" Verse 6, "A friend of mine has just arrived for a visit, and I have nothing for him to eat." Verse 7, "And suppose he calls out from his bedroom, 'Don't bother me. The door is locked for the night, and my family and I are all in bed. I can't help you.'" Now, understand the underlined word, "I can't help you." Verse 8, Jesus is speaking again. "I say unto you, though he will not rise and give him, because he is his friend, yet because of his importunity he will rise and give him as many as he needeth." Watch this. Because of his importunity, because of his persistence that keeps him knocking, that keeps you asking God. Verse 9, "And I say unto you, ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." Jesus is emphasizing that God welcomes persistence in prayer. In the parable, the man keeps knocking and asking for bread until his friend responds. This is a powerful lesson. God is not reluctant to answer prayers. Unlike the friend in the parable, God is eager to respond to his children. Persistence in prayer is not about convincing God to act. It is about showing our faith and dependence on him. Verse 10, Jesus is speaking again. "For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks the door will be opened." Verse 11, "Which of you fathers, if your son asks for a fish, will give him a snake instead? Or if he asks for an egg, will give him a scorpion?" In verse 11. Jesus compares God to a loving earthly father. If human fathers, despite their flaws, give good gifts to their children, how much more will God, who is perfectly loving and good, give the best gifts to his children? This reassures believers that God desires to provide for their needs. Jesus wants us to trust that God will not deceive us or give us something harmful when we ask in faith. The parable between a fish and a snake, or an egg and a scorpion, Luke 11:12, highlights that God gives us what is beneficial, not dangerous or deceptive. Jesus emphasizes that prayer should not be timid or hesitant. Just as a child confidently asks a parent for what they need, believers should come to God with faith and trust, knowing he listens and cares. Earlier in this discussion, Jesus tells the parable of a persistent friend who asks for bread at midnight. This reinforces the idea that God honors consistent and heartfelt prayer, not because he is reluctant, but because persistent prayer aligns our hearts with his will. This teaches us to ask anything in prayer, because God is a loving Father who delights in giving his children what is good. He wants us to trust in his goodness, pray with confidence, and seek his presence above all. The greatest gift we can receive is not just material blessings but the Holy Spirit, who leads us into a deeper relationship with God.